Okay, and 3, 2, 1. We are live. So this is how it is. This is the second installment of the E3 SadCast because I guess I'm a little sad that E3 didn't get to happen this year for reasons that we've already discussed.
No live E3. No live conferences.
Well,
no merch tables.
There are live Zoom calls. They did that for Xbox.
Did they? I didn't know that.
No. It was because in their gameplay reveal, they're just all on Zoom or whatever. Not Zoom, but whatever Microsoft's version that probably is similar in quality. I don't know. Yeah, so I got my peanut butter jelly sandwich. A callback to simpler times, and got my booch in the fridge over there, which Kaleb with the C is such a big fan of, as we discussed in the last installment.
You monster.
Yeah, well,
You continue to drink that sludge.
You haven't tried this sludge. I wouldn't call it sludge, personally. I think it's pretty good. Maybe even a nectar it might be referred to as.
I could easily just grab my last vodka, but I don't want to.
Your last vodka?
Yes, but I don't. I want. Yes, the edgy vodka.
The edgy Vex brand.
It is literally the edgiest brand I've ever seen. It's like
it's presented similar to how some energy drinks kind of are. Like its box art makes me feel like it's kind of like an energy drink. So yeah, we got two Kalebs in this episode, so this is going to be great in terms of people understanding what's going on. Well, luckily your boxes light up with who's talking. So Kaleb with a K is the Darth Vader one. Kaleb with a C is what does that face represent?
That is Sig from Puyo Puyo Tetris.
So a pretty niche crowd to say the least, but nonetheless, you can tell the difference between the squares. So,
I thought they were circles.
Well, they're encapsulated by larger squares. Shut up. So, you mean what?
I said that. I guess so.
Yeah. All right. So, I actually prepared for this episode, my fellow Kalebs. Surprisingly enough. So, I have a couple of topics here. So in terms of reveals, how do we all feel so far about what's been displayed?
In terms of new stuff?
Yeah.
Meh.
Nothing that quite takes it home for either of you?
Yeah. At least for me.
What do you think? What do you think, Kaleb? See?
I haven't really been in touch with any of the... You
just had to change your profile picture. So one is profile Darth Vader. The other one is mid-action Darth Vader. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what were you going to say before you derailed the whole podcast?
I haven't really been in touch with any of the real major reveals.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a few Nintendo trailers released, but I haven't watched those because they're literally like Clubhouse games, and Pokemon Snap has been revealed to be on the Switch now.
Yeah, I seen that.
You got the Origami King coming up for Paper Mario. You got
yeah, that's a big one.
You got
that one literally just came out of the blue. They were like, "Yeah, here's Paper Mario."
Origami King. So
looks like it's going slightly back towards its roots, which people are happy about.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last installment, and we talked about how it seems to be a bit of a trend of a return to form for a lot of the franchises, which we argue would probably be a good thing, because chances are people love it more or less for what it started with. We have
Resident Evil is doing that right now.
Resident Evil, you said?
Resident Evil, yeah, Resident Evil 8. They're actually, I thought when they first revealed it, I thought it was going to be Resident Evil 4 because the area looked almost identical. But it's realizing that the story takes place in the same location that Resident Evil 4 did.
Okay.
Wait, there's Resident Evil 8?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It's because you didn't watch the
behind
PS5
the
reveal.
times. I am behind the times.
Alright. So in terms of... I appreciate, I don't even know how to refer to you guys. I'm gonna call you 1C, and I'm gonna call 1K. So, Mr. C, I appreciate that you bring an element of being a Nintendo main to the atmosphere, because I feel like while Mr. K and myself both enjoy Nintendo, I feel that it's not as much our main jam nowadays. So I think it's good that you bring that perspective. So apparently, okay, Gods and Monsters, I believe that's from Ubisoft. That is coming to the Switch. It was just another
PS5 as well.
Yep, that would make sense. Pokemon Snap. So what is Pokemon Snap?
It's just it's like Pokemon Snap, but just remastered with new Pokemon.
No, but what is Pokemon Snap? Like, is it just you take the selfies?
It's like
you're thrown on an island with a camera by Professor Oak in the original. He's like, go take pictures of Pokemon, and that's literally it. You're on like a safari van sort of thing. You can't. It's not free roam, and it's on a track, and you have to take pictures of Pokemon in the environment. Yeah, and you gotta get points by taking pictures of the Pokemon. But for some reason, it blew up in popularity, and people were like, "Nintendo, give us another Pokemon Snap for goodness sake!"
So what was the original released on?
The N64.
Oh, okay. Wow, is that far back ago? So what you're telling me is they took one mechanic of Sly Cooper and put it on rails, and people are like, "This is amazing."
Yes. But
wait.
More Sly.
Oh no, they added some new stuff.
They did. They added new stuff?
Yeah, they added new stuff. You will take photos and make... they will take photos to make their very own Pokemon photo decks while discovering all new, never-before-seen Pokemon expressions and behaviors.
So in other words, they throw up the kawaii the fingers and the peace sign, and they flash...
You don't want.
They pretty much copy and paste Pokemon Snap from 64 and just gave you new Pokemon, better graphics, and some new.
But you want to know something? It has better graphics than Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, it does actually.
They innovated somewhere. They innovated somewhere.
I think it runs off the similar engine as the Let's Go games did, because those games look really good. Well, Pokemon Sun and Moon looked very bad.
The mainline games get worse. The side games get better treatment than the mainline games. That is pathetic. That makes me very sad.
So in terms of Nintendo, out of all that they've listed so far, what interests you the most and why?
Paper Mario.
Yep.
Sort of interests me the most because I've been a big Paper Mario fan ever since I played the first one when I went to visit my cousins. Well, I didn't play it. I watched them play it because I sucked at video games back then. The only thing I had was the PS2 back then, and even then I sucked at everything.
Hey, we all start somewhere. Didn't you also start off with some fairly hardcore games though? Because weren't some of your first games like Kingdom Hearts?
No, my first games were Enter the Matrix, Red Faction, but then those got taken away because Granny was like, violence is bad for children. It will make you a murderer. So we sold those, and I got Harvest Moon on the PlayStation 2.
And then everything was fixed.
No, it just made me even more violent in video games.
Darn it. Crisis almost averted.
I don't know, right now there's nothing really like huge coming out in Nintendo, like insanely huge. Like they've kind of fulfilled their quota for a while now, and then they're just gonna throw some big game out of the blue.
I feel
There's the whole next Smash DLC character reveal coming, which has absolutely no hype. No one has any hype for this character.
Yeah, neither do I.
what character?
It's a character from ARMS.
Oh,
which
everybody's favorite
they were like-
Nintendo Wii U exclusive.
They were like
It was a Switch exclusive.
Oh, it was?
they were like a few months back. Oh yeah, you guys better get hyped up. The next character for Smash DLC is going to be from ARMS, but we're not telling you who it is. So wait till June or July and then we'll tell you. And it's like, nobody freaking cares.
So the tagline should be, for the first time ever in Smash Bros, you can use your arms to fight. And just leave it like that. Directly to you.
Like, honestly, the biggest controversial reveal and release with Bailiff, like, it split the fan base down the middle.
Bailiff.
It split
I haven't kept up enough. Can you educate me on the recent character installments and why they're broken or whatever?
So Bailiff basically split the Smash fan base in two.
Okay.
Because Bailiff is a Fire Emblem character. And he was the last character to be revealed for the DLC Pack 1. And back when... this was also just after they said that there's going to be another batch of DLC. So everyone, like, half the fan base was extremely disappointed and angry that, oh, it's another Fire Emblem character.
Well, that's what everybody wanted, right?
Why didn't you... No.
No.
That's innovation.
I don't... Oh, okay, Mr. R, where do you stand on the Byleth release?
Honestly, I didn't care at all. I never, like, by the time Byleth came out, that was like the last character I really played. Even though he's the only character out right now, but I literally haven't played the game since she came out.
Yeah, neither have I.
Yeah, I don't think I've played
I've
since
just not-
what was it, Christmas maybe? Or
The game has died for me. There's no fun in it at all.
Really?
Yeah, I've
anymore.
stopped having fun with it. I've stopped going to tournaments, not just because the whole...
Well, the whole quarantine makes it a bit difficult.
I never liked
They
going to
had it,
tournaments.
the tournament group that I usually go with, Incarnate, they had a online tournament in February, and I just... Or was it March? I think it might have been March. And I signed up, but then I thought, you know what? I'm not having any fun at these tournaments anymore. Not just because I'm not really improving, but they keep putting me against people who will beat me.
Yeah,
they put me with people who guaranteed will beat me.
So you feel that's unfair matching at the beginning?
No, that's just the brackets seeding. The way they seed people based on how good or how good they expect it to be. So the only way to kind of do that is you kind of have to get better, or else you won't. Like it's like if your seed goes up, you'll get better matches. So like a higher seed probably give you a lot better.
But
just from my experience,
honestly, whenever I do horribly in the regular bracket, but when I'm in the losers bracket, I do really well.
Yeah, it's just that's just seeding.
It's, but I don't mean, like, the last live tournament I went to, I was paired up against someone in the regular bracket who just outright destroyed me. And then in the losers bracket, I was paired up against one of the higher level players who had lost due to bad luck. And it was an epic battle. Like, we were pretty much evenly matched. It was... I think it was Ike versus Ganon. And at one point, thank goodness it was live streamed, because it was one of the best fights I've had. At one point, we actually clashed swords. And it was...
Ganon? Oh, that's insane.
And, like, and we were both on our last stock, I had Rules of Nature playing on my MP3 player, and it was just the best fight I've ever had. I ended up losing, but it wasn't a loss where it was like I felt cheated. I felt accomplished that I managed to bring this guy down to his last stock, and we had an epic fight. And it was the first time where I went in for the handshake, and I was like, yes, this honestly feels good. Shaking hands. Like, I'm not a salty. I don't get salty in Smash.
Well,
it's just I get this up. No, I really don't. I really don't.
I do.
Honestly,
we've had some times though where I think you've gotten miffed.
I got miffed because of bullshit RNG. Okay. But I've really not had much of a problem. Like, I get disappointed when a match doesn't really go well, and you can tell that. But anyway, back to the Byleth thing. The Byleth
Yeah, the original
DLC.
point.
Yes, let's get back on topic. The Byleth DLC tore the Smash fan base in two. Half the fan base was like, yeah, another character, and the other fan base was completely fed up with Nintendo adding another Fire Emblem character. That's what, 8 Fire Emblem characters now?
Yeah.
It's like half the roster.
That's like 99% of the roster right there.
I also don't think it. I think they now have the most characters. I think at the game they just passed Zelda. Zelda had it for a while.
I'm actually kind of surprised that there's only 8. I felt like you were gonna say more. I felt like that number's higher.
Like,
No.
We can't stop till we hit 12, guys.
Run.
Oh, part of the problem.
there
Here.
was
We need another sword character.
Robin.
another anime swordsman. I saw there was a video I saw on the next DLC release, and it was a YouTube poop, and it was literally all the Fire Emblem characters.
But they did it with the end game intro. That would have been good.
Might as
So-
well just-
I still stand by this, and I don't know why it hasn't been done in some way. Like, I feel like some sort of agreement should have been made. I feel like they should. I feel like it's kind of probably a meme, but Sora for Smash, I feel like would be a sword character that everyone would welcome.
It'd make too much sense.
You have it makes too much sense because in terms of the legal stuff, I'm not really sure if there'd be a lot of bears or not, because I know it's no longer a Sony exclusive, right? You could get Kingdom Hearts 3 on Xbox, and it's Square Enix is the one that owns. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do they own full rights to it? Because it's theirs.
No, they're partnered with Disney.
Well, yes, okay.
And you also got to remember that after Kingdom Hearts 3, there was no Final Fantasy characters in it. It was only Disney characters. So since it's so tied in with Final Fantasy, there's no real way they could add any spirits or my brain just died right now.
So I will pick it up with saying that because Cloud is in the game, the door is open, and you would nearly just need to make some sort of deal with Disney that I'm sure could be reached, because it's not like Nintendo and Disney haven't ever done anything together before. Like, they've had Disney games on their platform. Like, I'm sure that something could be reached, and it would probably be pretty good publicity. And so I think that it's just a matter of, like, you know, are they gonna do it? Because, like, it's not a matter of like completely inconceivable. But I think moving from
I think the big problem with adding Sora is the huge legal thing with Disney, because Disney is going downhill real fast in terms of quality. Big step for them.
So do you think that Sora would help improve the reputation? If they
Probably not.
Well, because let's also be honest, this is an extremely small step in any direction, right? Like, adding a character to Smash does not make any big change. I just think that it'd be something that I think the community would love, and I think it would be a sword character that would be welcomed. And I think that you can have like a variety of different abilities that you could use with the different spells that you could use in Kingdom Hearts and etc. You don't even have to use all of the summons or whatever, but I'm sure that there's other stuff you could dive into and make it hopefully unique enough. And then if you could get permission to use a lot of the other spirits and stuff, then great. But then that opens the door for even more Disney characters, and then you might end up getting the same Fire Emblem fiasco. But like now we have too many.
No. Remember what Sakurai said. Only the characters who have only appeared in video games first.
Oh,
they
I
cannot
see.
have appeared in media before that.
Okay, that's
why
a fair
Goku's
statement.
not in Smash. That's
Okay.
why none of these other characters are in Smash.
That's fair.
Because they've appeared in other media before video games.
Okay, but Waluigi didn't have a movie, and he's still not in there, right?
Well, that's because Sakurai just
Waluigi.
hates Waluigi.
Right. I feel like that train died a while ago, but I think we should move from the topic of Smash Bros. Even though I think I do enjoy a good chill Smash Bros.
Discussion.
Dialogue, because I think it's a game that's been with all of us for quite some time, at least to a degree that we all love, and that kind of really brings people together. And I think it's also worth saying that,
and tears people apart.
Well, yeah, that too sometimes, but hopefully we all come back together again. I think one thing I realized the other day, even just as I was playing some COD with some of the boys there, I was so thankful that we can still have these experiences online together where we're playing games together and having a good time, because I feel like like there's a lot going on in the world, and there's been a lot, and I feel like it's just great to still have those awesome moments together in games, and that's awesome that that's something that we can still share. So thank God for that. In terms of back to some of the main topics here, what demos do you think would have been playable at E3? This is something that occurred to me the other day.
It's very different because I don't think.
So I'm going to take a wild guess real quick and say Deathloop would have had something. I feel like there's enough there to have had a 5-minute demo or something.
Oh, I already know everything Bethesda would offer if they had it in right now.
All right, so I'm going to let Mr. K continue his thought there, and I'll just sit back.
They would have, obviously. Oh crap! I played a video by accident. They would have obviously another. What's it called? Elder Scrolls 5, Elder Scrolls Online expansion, as they always do every summer.
Which everybody's always so hyped for.
Yeah. Then they'll.
And they'll release Skyrim on the
PS5.
fridge.
I made this joke the other day, I think, and I said
you did.
Skyrim with friends on PS5. I actually think it would sell like ridiculously and be like it would be memed, but I think it would also be well received if they actually just put a full co-op in the game, like what people have been wanting forever and have wanted modded, but then apparently there was a fiasco with the mod not being okay. I don't know if that story was true, but long story short, I actually think it would land pretty well, even though it would be memed so hard and some people would probably hate it. But
Probably some dashing attempt to try to revive Fallout 76 with this big overhaul.
NPCs, man, that's big. Like we've never had NPCs. Like that, it's crazy looking back, because it just goes to show that when you're in the audience in a show like that, it completely changes the dynamic. It's like you want to woo for just about everything because you're just happy to be there. But when you're watching it online, there's none of that extra stuff rooting for them. Yeah, so then you're just kind of like meh or whatever. But like it was crazy how big of a deal this dude made about NPCs. Like he raised his voice for it.
1 million troops.
Wow.
Honestly, I think they would have got way more promotion if they just canceled the game. To begin with, they should have just never bothered.
If they canceled Fallout 76?
They just canceled it.
Full refunds. They'll give you the bags back or whatever, and then the reputation's clean in that moment. And then Starfield has only microtransactions and loot boxes, and it turns into a mobile game. And Elder Scrolls 6 is paywalled.
I don't think we would have
not be right.
I don't think we would have gotten anything from Starfield this year.
I think
Elder Scrolls
that
6.
Personally, I don't know how much having all of these things online actually influence the decisions of what to show, I would wager that there's maybe a 10% or something like more minimal but still partial that there was an effect on what they wanted to show. I think that that's a little bit of the case. I think that maybe just even condensing everything into one show, and not having the show floor to display other things, I think may have had an effect on it. But I think that by and large we would have seen at least a very similar library to display if E3 had actually happened.
I mean, we might have got a launch window, maybe a little bit of content.
For what?
Starfield?
For Starfield? I would be willing to wager that there might have been a teaser of some sort.
Because they haven't even announced anything for release date or anything like that. Because believe it or not, Starfield is Bethesda's first original IP in 25 years.
Really? So wait, is all the Elder Scrolls stuff not actually their IP?
Well, no. First,
new original. As in, okay. Because I consider Skyrim. Okay, you mean like completely new in terms of it's not part of a franchise or a series.
Yes.
Okay, I see what you mean. I guess that would that makes sense. I just misunderstood, I guess.
Like Bethesda Game Studios, you got other Bethesda games, but they're only produced by Bethesda and developed by other companies. But then you got Bethesda Game Studio.
Okay, and I think Starfield was something that kind of hit people by surprise. I don't know if people expected as much, but then again, it's also not that surprising because Prey was a thing and stuff like that. So it's not like they've never done sci-fi, even if they didn't go full franchise with it. Mr. C, what are your thoughts on this?
What?
All right, back to you, Mr. K.
I lost my train of thought now. What were we talking about?
All right, so I think if we've derailed this hard, I'm gonna move us on to the next topic. I love the response of asking for input and just getting a what? Okay, so in terms of I guess getting back to the original point in terms of demos. So having a physical show, we think may have had a difference on what was shown in terms of trailers potentially, right? Now I almost would wager that I think they would have had a bigger indie showcase, because I feel like the amount of indie representation to E3 has grown a little bit ever since I feel like 2014 was a pretty big year for it. And then I think it's had a pretty good presence. In terms of what was on the show floor in terms of demos, a lot of it tends to be, I would say, indie or third party. I don't think you normally see as much first party, but then again, there's also not always a whole lot of first party games necessarily coming out at the same time. I also think that it's difficult because I think that E3 not happening this year, it played to some strengths. Yeah, and Kaleb, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to it played to some strengths given that it being the end of a console generation.
Yeah.
People are either, they're going to kind of, there's not a whole lot to play right now because the console's not out right now. And they're saving a lot of their stuff, just kind of teasing it or whatever for the next generation. But in terms of what would have actually been available to make the show floor valuable, it would have been to some degree minimal or limited, right? Or you could even argue that some of your next-gen stuff would be running at a nerfed version on current consoles or would be potentially running on PCs at other booths, right? Like in Bethesda's case. So in terms of what demos do you think would have been realistic to see on the show floor with this in mind?
From what we got, I think we would have gotten maybe a Demon Souls demo.
Really? That soon, you think?
I think so.
Because they presented in such a way where it looked very early.
No, it's actually the people who are remaking this. Actually, they remastered Shadow of Colossus for PS4.
Okay, so they have some reputation.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we would have got at least a 20 to 30 minute demo, if that. I don't know, something like around there. Deathloop, yeah.
Mr. C, what do you think? What do you think you would have seen on the show floor for demos? What do you think would have been playable for all of them, for all of the companies?
For all of the companies, since I don't know if they'd have since the release date of Last of Us 2, think they'd have a demo out there.
It comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, like it comes out tomorrow, but hey, why not showcase it?
I think
Why
that's
not
fair.
showcase it? Because they have
But-
had demos of games that are coming out fairly recent.
Yes,
Put
but
out.
we're talking about E3 here. PlayStation.
Oh, yeah,
wouldn't be
E3.
there. We're talking like PlayStation wouldn't have been there regardless if they
Oh,
were still
yeah.
at E3.
This is actually this is
Weren't
true
they
as well.
pulling out?
Yeah, this is true.
So
as
we
well.
wouldn't have gotten any PlayStation like first party games. It would all be like other developers and Nintendo.
There would have been a void like there was last year. A void that was filled with things that were not the same.
Actually, don't know much about Microsoft or Bethesda or all the other companies. Other than
What do you think Nintendo
other than
would have had some
Nintendo.
stuff?
I think they might have.
They might. They don't have any real solid AAA titles coming out
Mm-hmm.
or have been released yet, revealed yet. There's definitely going to be a summer direct, so whatever would be in the E3 summer direct would definitely be showcased at E3. And there would probably be whatever would be in that E3 direct demoed.
I'm hoping if they do announce something for in terms of new big first party games, I'm either hoping for like a Nintendo cart, something like that, or a new Mario. I want a new 3D Mario game or a remake of the 3D Mario games that they bought. That the rumors have been going around with.
Yeah,
now, remakes
that's
is an
the big
interesting
thing right
topic
there.
because
There's
remakes
been-
are not normally something that Nintendo tends to do. They normally tend to take a similar franchise and just kind of innovate a little and make a sequel, kind of like what we saw with Paper Mario. Even though some people would not really think that would be that great of an example, but I'm saying that that's normally how it goes, like that kind
Luigi's
of
Mansion, for the 3DS was a remake. Xenoblade Chronicles, the definitive edition.
You have Majora's Mask remake, right? An Ocarina of Time remake. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Majora's Mask, Star Fox 64 for the 80th time.
For the what?
No, Star Fox Zeroes was a remake of Star Fox 64
Right.
with horrible controls. Yes, it's almost the exact same story as Star Fox 64.
Okay.
It only changes up at the end.
Okay, so thank you for the correction with that. And now, with that said, do you think that there would have been any potential remakes or remasters revealed and playable? Or do you think it would have been just kind of meh kind of stuff that you already know about?
They are going to do some, and they're going to be big first parties. There's been lots of talks about Mario 64, Super Mario 64,
And Sunshine.
and Sunshine. Yes,
Sunshine would be
But
dope. I think I in my heart I want a Double Dash remake.
Yeah, that would be cool. But I think they would just I was talking about a Nintendo Kart. It's like they would add every Mario Kart stage in plus everything else with any new characters they add.
Like they've been leaning away from Mario characters in Mario Kart 8 when they added with Link and Animal Crossing characters to the DLC.
I don't know if that's necessarily confirming a leaning away, but I see where you're coming from in terms of that the focus was not on adding more Mario characters, but just adding other characters of their franchise. I just think that in terms of bad branding, that calling it Nintendo Kart is not a wise move, similar to how I feel calling Sackboy A Big Adventure was not as good as calling it Little Big Planet 3D. But that's just my opinion, though.
But you want to know something that really irks me?
What is that?
They add 2 F-Zero tracks and the Blue Falcon, but they don't add Captain Falcon to freaking Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
That's so stupid.
Everybody, I think, just wants another F-Zero, right?
Like,
That's one of the more neglected ones.
F-Zero GX remake.
That was on GameCube, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
That was
big
the most hype one. I played that. It was really good.
I think
with Sega, they're talking about 2020 being the year of Sonic or something, but nothing's come out of it yet.
No.
All right, so Sonic 06 remastered.
That would honestly, if they did that and actually made it a playable game,
No, same game.
dude. Oh, fuck you.
Just looks prettier, but still broken.
All right, I gotta rejoin the Discord. My computer's gonna restart here in
All right.
like 2 seconds.
All right.
I'll be right back.
So Kaleb, with a C, you were talking about how if they made it playable, which I think would probably be, a wise decision to make a game playable. How would you recommend them make it better?
Well, there are quite a few there are a few game-breaking glitches, but there are there's just a ton of glitch in the game. You know this, that it's just a buggy mess.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because it was just rushed out at the Christmas holiday season deadline.
Yeah. Was that E.T.?
Oh yeah,
well, that too. But...
oh yeah, give us a sequel to E.T.
E.T. remastered, but with they keep the same graphics though.
Although I don't think you can ever really get a title of the best worst game ever. Like that's a title that only very few can achieve.
It's funny because my grandfather on my dad's side of the family got a trophy in a golf tournament for coming last, and it was just like a bronze donkey butt on a plaque. And I'd never seen a trophy like this before, and I asked my dad about it, and he told me, he came last place in the golf tournament or something like that. So I think that
speaking of,
is that like the kind of award you would expect for something like E.T.?
E.T. award.
It's just literally just the old like E.T. stylized Atari art, like the art of E.T.'s body, but like a pixelated gold plaque. Okay.
Why isn't this a thing for the worst game of the year?
That would make everybody really scary.
Because they don't want to make
scared.
Because they don't want to make people feel bad. That's why.
Yeah. Okay, participation medals for the Game Awards. 2.5 hours of just people giving medals to every company.
But no, speaking, you gave me an idea when you were talking about that though. You know what games need to start doing? They start making fun of you for sucking.
Well, you see, I feel like while I don't know if that's I don't think that's the best way to do accountability. But I think that calling people out,
journalists would hate you for that.
Yeah, I feel that there's a point to be had with calling people out on their crap. How you do it matters. And I don't necessarily think that giving an award for worst game is necessarily the best, but I see where you're coming from though.
I'm talking about like Wolfenstein, where with the difficulties, like they kind of make fun of you between the difficulties of like depending on what difficulty you choose.
If you play on super easy, it calls you a baby, and then
it's like you're a wuss.
What is it? What is it on the hardest difficulty? Hurt me more, daddy.
Yeah.
One of them is I am death incarnate or something like that, and then the what is it? The easiest difficulty is Daddy, can I play?
Oh yeah, Daddy, can I play?
Yeah, and he's got the pacifier in his mouth and stuff. The bottom.
Yeah,
like it's like a horror like not a horror, but like a comedy aspect. Like nothing that's like to make it funny.
I thought you were saying that. So I thought you were. The whole point of this is that you were saying that the Game Awards should give out an award for worst game. That's what I thought you were trailing off of.
I'm saying games should implement stuff like that, where it's like you die during a certain part, where it's like even in Metal Gear Solid, whenever you're climbing somewhere and you just fall off the back, it's time paradox.
Yep. Or in Death Stranding, how he's like, oh come on, man, eyes open.
Or during the first Ocelot, during the Ocelot fight in the first Metal Gear Solid, when you shoot the president, they actually actively call you an idiot.
I do appreciate.
You idiot!
I appreciate games that are kind of self-aware like that. Like I think it's kind of interesting.
Like the whole video game journalists begging for easy modes in games like Dark Souls and all that.
Do they know what Dark Souls is supposed to be?
They literally call any difficult game the Dark Souls of that genre.
I think that if a game is that grueling, and earning that title, then I understand. But at the same time, is it a definitively like that hard of a game? Because that's quite a statement, right?
But just remember, these game journalists are just journalists. They aren't gamers. They have absolutely no idea how to play the game or what to do. Have you seen the video of the guy, the journalist, trying to get through, attempting and failing to get through the tutorial of Cuphead?
Oh, no, I have not. But I would not lump in all journalists or game journalists with not being gamers, although I think that there's probably... I'm not
90% of them
doubt.
aren't.
So
90% of them aren't, and they're mainly just there to put their take on the game and beg for an easy mode.
okay, well, for the percentage of that is true, I see your point. I don't think that... I feel that anything that tries to encourage game developers to bend to the will of any mass amount of people, like bend against their own values of what they want their game to be about, I think is kind of a dicey situation or kind of risky, because it's like, where do you draw the line? Because I think that ultimately it is their art that they're making, and so just because somebody thinks it's too hard, does that mean that they should make it less hard? You know what I mean? Like, that's ultimately their decision to make, and if they choose not to, then I think that should probably be respected, at least to a decent degree.
There's a thing with that too, and like how development a game, like CD Projekt Red, when they just announced their delay, was it yesterday or today? They said they know they're gonna get lots of hate for it, but it's they want to make sure everything is perfect. So,
and I think that it's reasons like that why they've built such a good reputation. I think the people that know CD Projekt Red are probably, while they're like, oh come on man, 2 delays, I think at the same time they're like, oh, but you know, it's probably gonna be good. As a result, it's probably gonna be better.
Just remember the mantra of of who it was who said it. But a rushed game is usually bad.
Oh, I think we think
had
it's
this
Miyamoto.
Conversation, the last one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But continue what you're saying. Sorry.
Where a rushed game is most usually always bad, but a delayed game has the potential of always being good.
Or at least may eventually. Yeah.
Upper.
Yeah. May eventually be good. Yeah. Or will. I can't remember exactly the language, but yeah, something on that. And I think that those are pretty good words, especially when you compare and contrast it with Todd Howard's supposed quote of saying it's not what a game is at launch, but it's what it becomes. Now,
with paid DLC and paid updates.
I actually want to look up that quote to make sure that it is indeed what he said. I just heard them say it on Angry Joe. Now you just listen to my mechanical keys. Okay, so here's the quote. Fallout 76 admission or something, I don't know. So from Forbes.com. It's not how you launch, it's what it becomes. Howard continued. It's really turned around. It's a fabulous game with an incredible community. I think laughter is semi-appropriate here.
I don't think that's true at all.
Okay.
I think a game should be complete at launch. Like it honestly, like it's not a game if it's not complete.
I think that it's at least you should be willing to admit that you screwed up if you screwed up, and I think that should hopefully go without saying, because I feel like part of the reason why they're in a bit of a hot spot right now is, well, as far as I can remember, just not the greatest PR decisions. Like, if you messed up, own up to it. Take that ownership, and then be honest about what you're trying to do to make it better. You know?
I just don't think they're good at making online multiplayer games.
Well,
I mean, you got Elder Scrolls Online.
Well, that's not even them. That's ZeniMax. But I feel like even in terms as far of an Elder Scrolls game, a lot of the people that wanted Skyrim with friends, I don't know if they were quite, you know, I think that they may have felt a little let down or a little bit meh when it came to ESO, right? Because there's a much more MMO than it was the idea of Skyrim with friends. Or at least to a degree.
I just think they have bad experiences with online multiplayer games, and they should stick to single-player RPGs.
And I think that part of that reason is because they have very little experience with online multiplayer games. Like, Fallout 76 is, correct me if I'm wrong, their first installment where they themselves as an internal studio made it.
Yeah.
Because, like, they just published for ZeniMax for ESO, isn't that correct?
I think so. Let me see. I'm not sure.
Because I could be wrong. But I think that... yeah, it's worth saying. So in terms of, I'm trying to remember how I even got on this tangent. So
yeah,
I think the keys in game development. Oh, sorry, what, Kaleb?
It's all Bethesda Softworks and game studios. So yeah.
So they published it.
No, yeah. ZeniMax for ESO, and then it was an internal one for 76.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I think it should hopefully go without saying that good practices, I think, tend to pay off pretty well, and I think that good practices should reign supreme, kind of thing. Now, in terms of we've talked about reveals, we've talked about what we wanted to see playable. I think that in terms of what I think that a lot of the more meh games would have been playable. So Sony wouldn't have been there. That would have been a bummer. And it feels like in terms of how they were modifying the show, as far as I remember from watching news back in I think February, March-ish, it seemed like it was going the route of trying to be an influencer event, and that it wasn't receiving all that great, reputation, or that wasn't getting received super well. I think what killed it for me, or what made me lose a lot more faith, is when Jeff Keighley backed out. Because Jeff Keighley and I feel kind of share a similar view on what we like about E3, or at least as far as I know. And to hear him kind of seem like he detailed in one of his Q&A sessions that he kind of not lost faith, but just kind of didn't see it as what it once was, and that it just wasn't quite what he wanted it to be anymore, and so he didn't really feel as passionate about being involved. I think that's a pretty telltale sign for it. But I think in terms of what I would have thought to have seen there, it would have been, some of the more basic stuff that's kind of like your tail end of this generation, probably gets ported over to the next generation, stuff from the third-party studios, or the AAA studios. So then you got like your Bethesda demos and your other stuff. I think we would have seen games from Microsoft and Nintendo that were already released. So I think overall the show floor would have been a bit more meh in terms of getting to play new hot releases, and more focused probably on community involvement, which you should focus on community involvement regardless, but in terms of it being around a new hype game, I don't know if it didn't really feel like there was as much of that this year leading up to it. Now,
it's
to
not
what
really
degree
the time you're making huge hype, over the top games.
I don't think that this year was nearly as hype, because like last year with Sony not being there, you still had Final Fantasy VII Remake, you had I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
You had the Cyberpunk hands-off demo. You had, first of all, there was a bit of a plague last year of having I guess plague isn't the best terminology to use. It was not a great thing to see the hands-off demos, because I think that was just kind of just really, you couldn't give us something that we could just get our hands on. We had to watch you play it, wait hours to watch you play it. But I don't know, that's just me. What were you going to say, Mr. Kane?
Final Fantasy VII Remake, when it came out, and is still to this day, is not the full game.
Well, it's episodic, right?
Yeah, they're putting it out in a couple different games.
Yeah, and episodic is kind of debated on how much people like that, because I think sometimes it's well received, sometimes it's not so well received.
I think that the reason they did it was due to the fact I don't think they were ready. It's like, okay, well, why don't we just get the best of both worlds and release the game in episodic so that they get to play it now, and then we also get time to work on it.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then it's almost the kind of thing where it's almost the Destiny scenario, where they're working on the game as people are playing it, but it's locked behind paywalls. I wouldn't say it's quite Destiny level, but it reminds me of that, and that's a bit of a bummer.
I don't think that. I'm not sure. I don't know how long the first part of the remake is.
Yes, Mr.
When was it originally revealed?
I think it would have been E3 of 2018, or was it?
No. No. They announced that way back in. Ooh, that was a while ago.
The first reveal, it might have been 2017.
No, I think it was way before that.
Do you think it would have been 2016?
I think so. It might have been.
There was
2015.
2015. That's right, because all you had was the people walking down the hallway and the gun arm, and then Cloud eventually his back.
And then you see the Buster Sword, and but I can understand why they'd release part of it at least, and then keep working on it, because it's been it's been 5 years since its initial release.
Or initial announcement. You mean?
It didn't release till this year.
Or initial announcement. I'm stupid.
I don't say that. So, in terms of hype, we could probably all come to the consensus that this year would have been a bit lackluster. Understandable, because it would have been the last year of the generation, so people are kind of holding off a little bit. I think the biggest hype in general would have been around Sony would have revealed their console at E3, and Xbox would have done. I almost feel like it would have been a 2014 repeat. I honestly feel like it because I don't know what it is with Microsoft, but somehow they always manage to miss the memo, or at least oftentimes.
You mean 2015?
Or 2013?
It would have been 2013.
Yeah, where they seem to just, I don't know, they just seem to get it wrong enough, where it's like they seem to forget. I don't know how it happens. There's a disconnect sometimes in Microsoft every now and then, where it's like you call it a gameplay reveal, and you have very little verifiable gameplay, and not even a visual of somebody holding a controller. So for all we know, it could just be pre-rendered to look kind of like gameplay, similar to how I think the Killzone 2 quote-unquote gameplay trailer was, and then people found out the game didn't look as good as the pre-made trailer and etc. or something like that. The story went something along those lines. So I feel
there's more and more of that.
Yeah, so I feel like Xbox would have done a similar thing this year, and it would have been a fumble, and it would have been Sony came in and just kind of like, okay guys, well let's just do the exact opposite, and then people would have been like, yay Sony, and then and then they would have revealed their console and everybody would have freaked out, and most of the hype around the whole event would have been that. But in terms of games, meh.
I think we would have the Microsoft conference would have had a lot of games that are Microsoft centered, promoted. None of them will be exclusive, minus Halo, Gears of War, everything else. Yeah, and then the PS5 would get the whole other side of it, and then that would be pretty much it.
So in terms of the next couple questions that I have here to talk about, it would be around kind of in terms of what we're thinking about in terms of games that have either been so it would have been about, like, you know, what are we scared to see in terms of game releases, and what do we want to see in terms of future game reveals. And so I think that
that's actually
I think it's fair to say that for Xbox, if they want to really hold their own and stand out and be desirable by people that are more than just tech enthusiasts or Xbox fanboys, if they want to really reach more into the market, then I think it's fair to say that they need to build their exclusive library, which is kind of rumored that they're putting eggs in that basket by, you know, apparently they acquired a bunch of studios to work on games for Xbox and stuff like that, but we still haven't really seen a super strong presence of that, or at least if we have, it's been more minor in terms of the games, right? Like, nothing super big deal AAA. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Also they're all in, like Microsoft IPs and stuff like that. Some of them you just have to keep trying until you get something that picks off, and then that's how you start getting the loyalty of big franchises. So it's like it's all a matter of whatever people like when it comes out. It's like
you want to know what really big with Microsoft, they have the right, they own Rare. They have the rights to all of Rare's IPs, and they just keep screwing it up.
I was just about to kind of say, oh no, in my head there.
Like, they've screwed it up with Banjo, and they screwed it up with Conquer.
What did you do with Banjo? Oh, sorry, Banjo-Kazooie. I thought you were talking about Crash for a sec. I'm like, okay, you said Banjo, okay. Okay, yeah, you're right.
So continue, Kill, with that.
Like, they've just screwed it up, and if they, like, Banjo's no longer a Nintendo IP, and neither is Conquer. They could easily, there are people wanting a new Banjo and Conquer game in the same vein of the originals, and it'd probably bring those fans back.
So I have a feeling that in terms of Conquer, I feel what they would do is they would release something more kid-friendly to try to sell more games, and they make the fan base angry. And I feel like that's correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like
They already did that with Young Conquer.
Oh, I didn't even know they made that.
Yeah,
but I feel like they do it again. I honestly feel like they do it again. Like, I feel like that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but a fairly Microsoft move to make. And then they'd be like, sorry guys, and then maybe some years down the road, they do one that was more true to the original. I feel like that's a fairly legit prediction. In terms of Banjo, I don't know. I feel like maybe they do, like, what was it, Nuts and Bolts or something like that? They do it kind of, like, they kind of lose the vision and be like, yeah, this is what people want, right?
like the sad thing is with nuts and bolts is it's soulless. You have these huge worlds, but they're empty.
Preach. That's a lot of open world games.
That's a lot of open world games.
You see that, and that brings us into a good segue of other stuff. Is that I think that we need to start being more concerned about quality and content. What?
Damn it.
What happened?
While we're doing this discussion, I'm playing WoW, and I just got myself killed in the dumbest way possible.
So, in terms of open world games, I think it's an important dialogue that should be had where just because a game has a bigger world doesn't make it better. And I think that there needs to be quality of content in that, or there should be, hopefully. It would be nice to have quality of content in that world to make it feel like a filled environment. Yeah, alive.
There's a very good example of that. I think we all know what it is.
I'm not sure.
Metal Gear Survive.
No, not Metal Gear Survive. Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh, in terms of it being an empty world?
Yes.
I think that's fairly legit because it's basically just kind of pockets of desert in between little compounds. Right?
There is, yes, but there's also a little bit of Easter eggs here and there, but it's not huge. It's like when I go on a mission on anywhere in that game, I'm not looking at the world. I just want to get to the location where I need to do the mission.
Right, and that brings up an interesting point about how a lot of games tend to not give you a whole lot of tools to traverse quickly, and then it just kind of gets annoying.
The Metal Gear Solid 5 community, there's a ton of mods that actually make the world more lived in.
That is true.
That should be the job of developers.
The developers should have done it in the first place. But with Infinite Heaven, you can make guard patrols more in throughout the world. You can have random skull encounters. The helicopter, you can have random gunship patrols. When you're not on a mission.
Yeah, which
speaking of the gunship patrols, I had enabled that, and I was watching an outpost, and I was overhearing a conversation between two guards, and they even said, "Hey, have you heard? We're able to have gunship patrols now."
So they added a bit more to it than just the mod itself. They added some context to it, which is pretty legit.
I'm kind of glad we came around to this because what I was going to say is kind of similar.
Yeah.
You go right on ahead.
In terms of because you're talking about games you're scared to get announced and expected releases. There's two. A Metal Gear Solid sequel would be a very scary game.
You see, I'm glad you brought that up because that's scary for so many reasons.
I don't think I would ever want that to release.
That's so scary for so many reasons because I feel like that's the thing where you're like, we want it, but we want it good, and we really don't want to take anything else. And
I would rather.
If Kojima or if Konami still has that license, I feel like it's almost guaranteed to be bad.
Yeah, which also it also comes into what I was going to say next. With another expected, a really anticipated reveal, I'd want would be a Silent Hill, which could be scary itself at the same time.
And we have seen a reveal.
Because it is a horror game.
And we have seen a reveal though, right? At Microsoft's quote unquote gameplay reveal. Because gameplay trailers should have gameplay, not trailers. That's like legit.
What? And they said that they were making a new game, but they haven't announced anything yet.
But they showed like a very brief amount of footage, like in-engine kind of like teaser. It was only I think about 20 seconds long. Maybe
I want to see that.
It was very minimal. Did you not watch the Xbox gameplay reveal? Quote unquote.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I want to see that.
They did talk about how they were working on, or at least I think it was.
Because I see here this.
Or was it? It might have been. It might have been the guy who worked on the music from Silent Hill. That actually might have been what it was.
Because they still haven't announced anything yet. I'm just seeing a thing here.
Retracted.
But I think that it could be good because they have announced that if they do that the new Silent Hill that they will be making, it won't be a like an American, like a Western developed game. It'll be developed in Japan.
Okay.
That would actually be pretty good because then the Japanese.
So and they're bringing lots of lots of members from Team Silent back onto the project as well.
Interesting. Now, Mr. C, oh, sorry, what?
the whatever his name was, the who does the music and the character designs and stuff.
Okay.
No, not yeah.
Mr. C,
He's
sounded
been
like
tweeting.
you had another point there.
I know Pyramid Head has just I don't know if he's just recently been added to Dead by Daylight, but
Yeah, they
trailer
just
for
added him.
yeah,
The game's
and it's
still
on
relevant?
the Switch now, which is pretty cool.
Because I felt like for a while Dead by Daylight kind of faded away, or at least I didn't hear as much about it. But then again, the last 2 weeks I've been a little bit more out of it, in terms of gaming news. I haven't been as involved. But what was it? Because I thought Dead by Daylight kind of would suffer the same thing as Friday the 13th, where it would be, pretty popular for a little bit, and then the whole thing would kind of fizzle out because the mechanics wouldn't. It would kind of suffer from that fatigue, right?
But but Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th were very different games.
Really? Because it looked like they had similar mechanics.
They were in terms of mechanic and the way the game played, it was very similar. But the Friday the 13th game were very broken. Very, very broken.
The wax faces, eh?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I played it. I played it when it first came out. It was broken.
I haven't played either, so I can't comment. But just from what I had seen, it looked like they're fairly similar ideas. Like you got the 4v1, 4 survivors versus 1 attacker, trying to do things to get out and stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, I wouldn't mind getting Dead by Daylight and doing a playthrough with you guys and Isaiah, and if we get a 5th, that'd be just the best.
One rando, the poor sucker.
The poor sucker who Isaiah most definitely will screw over.
Or even in the scenario where we all turn on him and or where Isaiah, I can see Isaiah blatantly walking past one of us to get to him, and then he rage quits. Yeah, but no, I think that'd be good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good time when I finally do start streaming.
Yep. All right, so in terms of the next topic, or actually, I guess we could continue to expound, I think is the right word, upon this. So we talked a little bit about what we're scared to see in terms of game releases, because we don't. I think it's a shakiness of trust in certain developers to make the good decisions, which as time goes on, it seems like more and more decisions are based purely more so out of greed than out of making good art, right? In a lot of cases. So in terms of what we do want to see in terms of future game reveals, what are your thoughts on that?
That's what honestly I've been trying to figure this question out for the last week and a half since I seen the reveal, because it's like you go. Yes, I've been trying to figure out. It's like, what are some of these new, like these older franchises that come out with new games? Because I've been looking for a reason to buy the console, and right now I don't see very much over console buying games coming out that's gonna come out this fall or the winter in the holidays.
Had to shut my door because there was music playing and I don't want to get copyright claimed.
No, the YouTube, if you put it on YouTube, it'll just it'll show you where you just edited it out.
But
They auto
effort.
Unless you're Sony, unless you're people talking about The Last of Us 2.
Oh yeah, that's
in any bad sense, if you talk about it, you'll get copyright striked, and your channel will get striked.
If you show a screenshot, 2 seconds of footage.
No, even if you just talk bad about it, they'll copyright strike you.
But yeah, I remember somebody was talking about it, and they had like one image or something. And it's like, oh man, yeah, they got in some hot water. That's another thing. Like in terms of studios that have kind of fallen in terms of reputation, Naughty Dog's been under some fire lately, man.
It wasn't really their fault.
Well, they also have some shady business.
It was a bunch of leaks. It was a bunch of leaks. There was a bunch of leaks that apparently might have been true. I don't even know. I didn't even see them. I'm glad I didn't, because I don't want to.
Right. I followed the story a little bit, and it seems like it was from a potentially, I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but potentially from a former team member that left because employee, because there was a bit of a falling out in terms of the business practices, or a bit of a reveal in terms of their business practices lately, and it seems like, at least as far as the reporting I've seen, it seems like they kind of tend to take advantage of more perfectionist types and hire them, and not necessarily, I wouldn't say force anybody to work under certain conditions, but there is a vibe of a certain way that you're recommended potentially to behave at the company in terms of putting in your long hours, like whether it be like
They expect you to
14-hour
work. They
days or
expect you to
whatever.
work hard.
No, but like
They're expecting you to crunch, aren't they?
yeah. So no, but like a lot of crunch. That's my because Rockstar. You heard about the month of crunch near the end of Red Dead 2. But what about the months of crunch for Uncharted 4 or Last of Us 2 or something like that? And whenever people make the effort to try to defend crunch, really, as far as I can tell, in terms of like Yang Ya's commentary, is you're just kind of defending bad business practice or bad management, right?
Yeah.
Or
Well, anyway, we should probably get back on.
There's a couple things you can argue for that though too. It's also like that makes a lot of sense what you said, but there's also a lot of companies that they like to make sure everything is perfect.
Like if the game is close to release,
look at their games that they've put out.
Yeah, this is fair.
And tell me that could not be something. I agree with you. It's not it's not something that should be like.
It's not morally right, but look at the product that they produce.
So here's the thing that as I would say to counter that is that okay, yes, it does get quality within a certain time frame, but now you run the risk of burning out employees and having people leave, as I think you already are seeing, or as far as I've heard, you're seeing people leave. So now you push people through this intense crunch, and you get, say, 4 good games out of it, as opposed to lengthening some development times, working some things out, changing up business practices, and getting a much longer lineage of games because people are not forced to work, or not forced, but encouraged to work in such conditions, and then as a result might need a month, 2 months, whatever, off at the end of a development, or leave the company outright, and now you're shooting yourself in the metaphorical kneecaps. So I think that is also a potential counter to that.
That makes sense, but you could also be like, some people might not see it this way. Some people, I don't know, it's just the way I think I see it. You're working on a game. It's something. If you're working in the field, it's like, oh, you could be passionate with something you're making. You know what I mean? It's like, shouldn't be something that's like bringing you down. It's like,
right.
No, it should be something you enjoy doing.
Attitude
it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's that also factors into it as well. It's like you're making a game. You put as much passion as you can into the game while you can before it comes out.
Yes, and I think that if you want to do it, then yeah, let them. But the thing is that when you have an environment that might have people say things like, "Oh man, because you left early the other day, it kind of made things difficult for me at the office and stuff like that," and now you have this kind of potential peer pressuring atmosphere, and it might just make it less enjoyable, right, for certain departments, not necessarily for all, but for certain ones. And all I'm saying is that when you have that seep into how you run the ship, how you run the show, it has potential to be bad for the company, bad for the people, and might cut you short in terms of the legacy that you could have. Because imagine if they managed to keep everybody, but you have to wait an extra year or 2 for each Naughty Dog game. Wouldn't that be, a fair trade-off? As a result of now, if everybody stayed on the team, you'd get to have just that many more great games. It just might take a little longer. I'm just saying that compromises should be discussed.
I don't know, because that also brings into so you have the same team doing it over and over. You can kind of lose variety and everything. You get new people coming in there. That's always new ideas.
But there's nothing stopping you from hiring new people with new ideas. I'm just saying we should avoid.
But then you're paying them more.
I'm just saying that we should avoid practices that cut talent from the team I'm saying we should avoid practices that end up making people decide to want to leave when otherwise they may not have.
The way I see it, the only time you should crunch is when the game is close to release and there's just some final pieces left of the puzzle that you have to put together. Not like half the game is left. It should never be in that sort of state. But they should also be paid accordingly to their time working on it.
And I think
I don't like they should be paid extra for their crunch.
I think that they definitely got paid for the hours that they crunched. Although whether they got paid overtime, I'm not sure. If you make that argument and it's completely voluntary, like then again there is a reasonable like kind of compromise to have there. But I think my main point is allowing an environment to take place in which you get an atmosphere that kind of pits people against one another if they don't conform to the crunch culture. Is what I'm saying. If it goes from a feeling of optional to mandatory, even though nobody's making it mandatory, but there's that vibe, it could just make it that much worse of an environment for you to work in and just increase the likelihood that you might leave. That's all I'm saying. And then you end up losing talent.
But also, Spencer, don't get me wrong, I'm completely against crunching. It's just sometimes there is a need for it.
I think that
just don't make that a regular occurrence. Don't make that the regular job environment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in the sense that crunch should be the exception, not the rule. And it just seems like the more I hear about Naughty Dog's practices, it feels like it's becoming more of a commonality, and I think that's what's concerning. So moving on from game industry
going back
woes,
to our original topic.
So in terms of how do we feel about the games announced thus far, I think that we kind of get a bit of a meh to a little bit of interest. Like Mr. K, you were talking about how you're coming around to some of the titles, and in terms of what
they aren't launch titles though. They're just games coming about in 2021 to 2022. It's like some of them at the late games that are gonna come out for the console.
I think it's difficult because I feel like, well, yeah, you could talk about a game and then say this will be a launch title. I think it's almost a bit concerning the more you think about it, because in terms of the lineup from first party at both studios, there's not a whole lot to make you think this
makes me think there's more
launch title. Yeah, it almost kind of makes me wonder. But you see, the interesting thing of it is that there's not really any reason to hold out, because sure, they haven't announced the exact release date of the console, and they haven't announced the price for either console. But that doesn't mean you can't say this will be a launch title, right? So maybe this is my hope. They have a secret library of stuff that we really would love to hear about. This would be a good idea. A secret library of stuff that we'd really want to hear about, and they unveil it when they drop the price and the date. So it's like when you come to buy your PlayStation on November whatevereth for this amount of dollars, you can also buy, this whatever. Now, what games do I think might be excluded from that potential lineup? I think it might be potentially a little bit too soon to see another God of War. I feel like the development cycle hasn't been quite long enough. I feel like we might get another God of War in maybe 2022.
It was 2018 when it came out.
It was the first one. It was what?
The God of War came out in 2018, so I'm expecting an announcement here in the next year or so.
Announcement is fair, but what I'm saying is I don't think they're just going to say God of War 2 releasing this November out of nowhere. I feel like that's unrealistic.
Not,
yeah.
But I'm looking at here. There's lots of exclusives coming out, just none at launch. But then you go back to the PS4. Look how many first-party titles were available at launch.
I know what you're saying. As I was saying that, I was kind of remembering the last console generation. I was like, well, it's not a whole lot of big attention grabbers. Like, I feel like for Xbox One, it was the ones that kind of interested me were, Dead Rising 3, Rise, Son of Rome, and what else? I don't know.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Was Forza a launch title for Xbox One?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems like we haven't had a super strong launch library for a little bit now. Like, I'm trying to remember what, I think people talk about N64 and how that was pretty strong. Like the first big jump to 3D for Nintendo. Yeah, you had Mario 64.
Then there was also the GameCube with Luigi's Mansion.
I forgot that. I always kind of bring together Sunshine with the GameCube, but I always forget that Luigi's Mansion came out first.
Yeah. So I think basically we're kind of reaching a consensus here that launch titles never seem to be super plentiful in strength. Like both having plentifulness and strength is what I should say. Where it's like you might have a few, but they're nothing that extremely stands out. Like or not a whole lot, right? Now I feel like if they were like another Uncharted, even though now I feel like Uncharted is not going to have the same. It'll still grip me, but it won't have the same grips because of how 4 played out. I know I'm going to avoid any spoilerish talk, but like in other words, I see mainly just spin-offs from here on out, for the most part.
Yeah.
So which still could be good, but I'm just saying it's not the same. Now if like Mr. C and I the other day were talking about some reboots that we'd like to see. If you were like, yeah, we're gonna do another Jack game launch title and Sly 5, that's gonna be exclusive and that's coming on this date and this and that and whatever, then I think that would have perked some eyebrows, maybe, I think it's unrealistic unless you got another studio to do Jack and Daxter right now because Naughty Dog is tied up with plenty of other stuff, right?
So apparently, Amazon has leaked the PlayStation 5 price.
I heard about this.
Yeah,
Saw that the other day.
It's gonna be a nice pretty penny.
Because
$500 million.
565, 565 US for the one with the disc drive.
565 US. Okay, because I saw something like 699 euros or something.
It was 490, and then the digital edition will be 450 US.
Wait, 450 versus what?
450 US for the digital version, 565 for the one with the disc in it.
What in the heck
drive.
kind of optical drive do you put in a console that it makes $115 difference? If my math is correct. My math could be wrong there, but I think that's $115 difference.
It's not 100% guaranteed. It's just leaked it just leaked on Amazon.
That's fair, but if that's in any way accurate, like first of all, part of me kind of wonders if like does Amazon do this just on purpose, like, or did they actually have some info from somewhere that some guy messed up with? Because I feel like this happens too often, and part of me is like, does Amazon just want some more press right now? But
I don't know. I think this might actually be like the last console with the disc drive. To be honest with you.
I think
I'd
that's
actually rather own my games. Thank you very much.
I agree, but
so Kaleb will be the old man with the cane on the lawn saying, "Give us our disc drives."
Yeah, that's just what it's gonna. It's just I don't like it, but it's just the way it's gonna go.
I think that I do agree that it's probably just a matter of time. Is it likely that within the because first of all you have to come to the bigger question of is this the last console generation? Because I've heard that rumored, and I wanted to ask Jeff Keighley, but my super chats never got read. At least I don't think they did. But anyway, I've heard it rumored, but the only thing is that because Adam Kovic at Inside Gaming and Funhouse now made this prediction a while ago that eventually all these gaming companies would just become brands, or at the very least like these little sticks you'd plug into your TV and then you'd just stream all your stuff. So basically everything will be Stadia, but hopefully not as bad as Stadia at some point in the future. That's a fairly reasonable assessment.
Stadia.
But in order to have that, you need pretty much, like complete hit the mic there. Complete good internet access by and large for pretty much everybody to stream everything all the time. That is something that's a bit of a reach right now, I think, for most people. And so I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's probably a matter of time.
Well, then you also get into things like on how like 3G and Wi-Fi and everything else will be transferred. That I think that's also gonna go down.
With what? What are you saying?
Like as time goes on, like the availability of Wi-Fi and internet will increase, and then the price is gonna go down. So
in terms of price of what? Price of Wi-Fi?
Like the ability to to have it and the technology to distribute it will get better.
Yes, that's
meaning
fair,
it'll be way more accessible.
Yes.
Like almost always accessible.
And I think
making that more accessible will also make it cheaper as well.
Right. Now I think that is an advancement that yes, of course, I think is probably inevitable and we you sometimes hear about these advancements being made in terms of connectivity increasing. But what I'm saying is that, is it possible within the next 5 to 7 years?
I think so.
Maybe. But the thing is that in order to make a case for no longer having a console in which you could even download games to, just having everything on a complete streaming service with no console, you really need to have a presence of internet security and connectivity and reliability that is on a global level, right? Because I feel like right now it's not as much of a safe, liable business practice or a safe business practice or venture to do that, to just open that up for, okay, now we're just doing streaming service only now. Now you can see the beginnings of it, the seedlings of it with their streaming services, right? And the success that potential that's there. But do I think it's going to happen by the next generation? I don't know.
I know for a fact Nintendo probably would not do that.
I really do want to agree with you. I feel like Nintendo kind of very much stays true to the old
They're
stuff.
very, very protective of their IPs, and they would not play nice if they just became a brand. They would definitely... I'm fairly certain Nintendo's going to keep on with the console generations, because, one, they're a toy company first. And if people are having fun buying their products, then they're going to keep making said physical product.
But I don't think
It depends.
PlayStation will be the last console generation for PlayStation either.
Yep.
Honestly, I think Microsoft is the only one saying this is our last generation of X.
Now,
Last generation of Windows, maybe last generation of people. A lot of people are saying last generation of Xbox. Apparently.
It's going to be the last generation of human beings.
Savage. I think that in terms of last generation of Windows, I believe that I have... I think I did hear this, like where now it's like, okay, it's going to be service. And we all know how that word's kind of been stained a little bit. Service. EA. Games
Please
as a
don't tell me
service.
you're gonna start giving me Windows as a subscription service. If I have to buy Windows, I have to pay for Windows every month. I'm gonna be really mad.
But I feel like that, like, by and large, subscription fees is where the world is going. And I feel that, would Nintendo give up consoles? I feel like if the money was there, maybe eventually they would, because it doesn't stop them from selling the rest of their toy stuff. But I do understand the novelty, and I feel that Nintendo, out of all the companies, would be the one to respect the novelty of consoles the most. Or, I don't know if novelty is the right word, but you know what I mean. Like, the kind of specialness of that, I feel like Nintendo would be the most reliable to honor that. And I think that in terms of technological advancement, Nintendo's never prioritized tech over everything else.
No.
They've always kind of been the opposite. Like, one of my
Look at their online services. Their servers are absolute garbage.
Who
Yes,
thought it was a good
they're
idea
not.
to make a phone app for party chat? Like, they don't even have party chat on the console yet, right? That's like they're still far back in that field. And I think that ties into one of the questions that I actually had here that makes for a good segue, is that will Nintendo release another Switch, upgrade, etc.? And I feel that is a reasonable question to ask. Do I think it will happen? Maybe. Like, they might release a Switch Pro or a Switch something to try to, up a bit of the hardware. But do I think that they're going to release another generation soon? Probably not.
No. How long did the Wii U last?
The Wii U came out in 2012, and Switch came out in 2017.
Is the usual console generation?
It depends. I think when it comes to Sony and Microsoft, it's a bit like, well,
6 to 7.
I would say, okay,
Microsoft are always trying to beat each other in the face, so...
Anywhere from 6 to 9, I'd say, because you had PlayStation 3 generation, which was like 9 years. But I'd say 7 is a pretty safe estimate. I think saying less than 6 is probably unlikely.
Like,
The PS3 was 6 years, dude.
No, it was not.
It was 2006 to 2013.
that's 7 years.
Or 6 to 7 years. Yeah, it's around there.
But support for it didn't necessarily end, though. But okay,
Yeah,
that's
but it's
fair,
like
that's fair.
it didn't support it, but it also didn't not support it. It was there as a convenience until everybody started buying the PS4. That's why you always see when a console generation goes like, yeah, we'll all still support PS4, blah blah blah. But it just always gets phased out. Nobody notices.
Unless you're Just Dance, and then you're always on the Wii.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. The most recent one that came out, I think, was still available for the Wii, and it's whack. And it just goes to show that there's so little innovation in terms of the software that it could run on like whatever. You know what I mean? Like they just add new songs with new moves, and it's like that's it. You know?
It's literally the same game every time.
Except people don't rag on it as much as they rag on like the EA Sports games. So apparently, according to Metro.co.uk, PlayStation 3 lifespan will be 10 years minimum. Sony insists. So I guess let's be fair about what we say when we say generations. I think it's fair to say that generation is while the console is the main console. So from PS3 release to PS4 release, I think that we could all
support.
Yeah, I think we could all agree upon that.
When it's getting the main focus from the company itself. I've heard people saying that we're in the middle of the Switch's lifespan.
Yeah, I think we are.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
It's 3 years.
Third?
Almost. It's been 3 years now. 3.5 years.
They've released the Switch Lite, and there's in talks of the Switch Pro where it has better hardware. I'm not saying. I'm thinking that's right.
I think it's gonna play out like the new 3DS. That's what's gonna happen.
But
that's kind of weird, just calling it the new 3DS.
I think exactly that's what's gonna happen.
I thought it was the 3DS XL.
My computer about to take off.
I don't see the Switch dying or anytime soon.
It's just gonna keep getting more and more games.
Okay, so
like it is one of the most popular game consoles out there right now. It's sold over what? I think. Wait, I'm gonna check the numbers right now. I'm not gonna say bullshit.
The most profitable in terms of sales, as far as I know, is still the PlayStation. The PS4 is, I think, sold the best since the I think the only one who ranges ahead of the PlayStation 4 is the PlayStation 2. So I do want to clarify that the console generation of the PS3, based on my math, 7 years. So I'm pretty sure, like you were saying, Mr. K. So I don't know why I heard 9. I think I heard 9 from Colin Moriarty when he was at IGN, and I just that was just in my mind. So that is, I guess, the correction is that in terms of while it was the relevant console, it was 7 years, regardless of whether you argue total lifespan. The generation arguably lasted 7 years, I guess.
Has sold 55.77 million units hardware sales.
So
many units it made you lag.
Oh, really? Oh, honestly thought the PS4 was past PS2, but the PS4 has sold 110. The PS2 is a bit over 155 mil.
PS2 is a damn good system, man.
That actually really surprised me. Right now, like in the terms of the top, the best-selling video games consoles ever, it goes the PS2, the PS4, the PS1, the Wii, and then the PS3.
PS1's ahead of the Wii?
Yes.
I wouldn't have thought that. And
wait,
PS3 is ahead of Xbox?
Million. PS3 is ahead of Xbox in terms of sales, yes.
Is ahead of Xbox 360, really?
Xbox 360 had 84 million, and PS3 had 87.4.
Oh, only just pulled ahead, even though they had a rough start. Wow, that's impressive. I would not have guessed that, because everybody kind of made it seem like Xbox was like the console of that generation.
Yeah, it's because I don't think anybody really cared about the exclusives at that point. It was the better in terms of hardware console. Same with the Xbox, the Series X coming out. It's going to be the better in terms of hardware, but in terms of games.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of games, but also I still side with the idea of I really want to see them in action, because part of me, based on what I've heard and what I've seen, I don't know if I believe that even though the Xbox has 2 more flops, I don't know if it's gonna necessarily mean that their games look better, because what if PlayStation's hardware and software engineers have managed to find more efficient ways to utilize the flops? The flops.
Well, yes, I'm not sure I'm not 100% sure right now if the Xbox is an all AMD system like the PS5 is. Because the PS5 is using an AMD CPU and then an AMD GPU as well.
And you got to remember the hard drive.
All based on the same,
based on how quick you can access.
Same architecture, and the way that the AMD the Ryzen CPU that they're using, or what is it, the RNDA CPU, whatever they want to call it, is those CPUs, they work really well with fast memory. So they use like they're gonna put 16 gigs of RAM in these ones now, and they're gonna use really fast memory. So I think that the same technology they're using to connect the CPU with the memory is going to be doing the same thing with the M.2 drive that they're also going to put it in there.
You're talking about for the PlayStation?
Yes.
So I didn't know as much about AMD's. So you said the AMD works better
with higher frequency memory. So it's up to 3600 megahertz, because what it does is the AMD CPUs or the Ryzen CPUs is they take your total memory speed, half it, and then one half of it is your memory speed. The other half is a frequency clock that goes inside your CPU, which basically transfers all the data of the memory like really fast at the other side of half of the frequency to give you faster connection speed between the CPU and memory to give you faster memory overall.
So in other words, it does the good stuff.
Yeah.
I zoned out a little bit there thinking about how in 2 minutes the Game Awards live stream is going to start, and part of me wants to hop in on that business, see what's going to happen. I don't know if it's just a Q&A or if it's a reveal. I have no idea.
Game Awards? Aren't they doing the Summer of Game thing or whatever? They're revealing games throughout the summer?
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't know if not necessarily every live stream is doing that, right? They might just have other stuff that's more of like Q&A. Now, when I say the Game Awards, Mr. C, I'm talking about the Game Awards channel, not necessarily the Game Awards event. Like, because they do have a YouTube channel where they're currently doing like a lot of the Summer Games Fest stuff. Now, in terms of our podcast episode, do you guys have any closing comments?
I probably would have if I didn't. I lost my train of thought multiple times. But no, I think I'm good.
No, I think I've said everything.
Sounds good. And I also just want to point out how I'm pretty glad that this has come full circle now, because I remember Mr. K, you and I were talking about doing a podcast a while ago. I think it was probably grade 10, maybe grade 11, and it's been a long time we've been talking about this, and we're finally doing this. So that's awesome.
That's like 1,000 years ago, man.
Yeah, man. And to have I guess, as long as we all manage to kind of talk around each other, I guess you could argue the more the merrier. Part of me is wondering if we try to get this with 4 people. I'm wondering how well this would go. Like if we had 4 of us around a table, we'd have to have the conch.
And then we'd all beat each other to death for the conch.
Because I held a big glow stick.
Although I do think I still spend most of my like the only time I interrupt Spencer is when I'm kind of correcting him, because sometimes he's not always the most accurate.
Well, I don't know. I hedge my words a lot because I try to not be a Sith and speak in absolutes. And I don't know how many things you have to correct me on. I think there might have been a time where you had to do more of it, but I think I'm getting a little better nowadays.
There was a little bit today. There was a little bit.
A little bit. The one thing was the PS3 generation lifespan, or the relevancy part of it. I overestimated by 2 years, so you got me there. And other than that, it was I'm trying to remember. I feel like there was 1 or 2 other things.
In theory, we know it was present. We know that it was present.
It was present, yeah. So, but in terms of corrections that you haven't had to, considering that we've been going for an hour and 34 minutes, you didn't have to do a whole lot. So, well, I thought you were coming from a place,
No, it's just joking.
All right, so it's been good doing this. We'll have to do this again. I think I was planning on doing this on Wednesday, but it just became such a busy day that we didn't end up doing it. I wanted to do it the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because normally E3 goes for those kind of midweek days. I'm down with potentially doing something on Saturday, as Friday might be a little bit more of a busier day as well, depending on how things go. But I guess since we all kind of don't have a whole lot of closing comments, we didn't get through all the questions, but we can go through them in the next podcast along with some more, hopefully. Feel free to gather any ideas you want to talk about. I think in terms of E3 in general, it's a bit difficult because there's not a whole lot of things to go over because it didn't happen. But if it did, if it did, it's probably for the best that things aren't going on right now. But thank you all so much for watching, and remember, okay, we're gonna do this on 1, 2, 3. We're gonna say the saying. Okay, you guys ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Gameplay trailers should have gameplay.
Play, not
trailers. So I waited for you, so that we could finish the second half together.
Play the game, don't show it.
Amen. No, but I think.
That shook.
All right. Thank you guys all so much for watching. You guys all have a great day.